Maths Conf 31 takeaways. Very special episode, and we're streaming right now on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and the other one, I can't remember, my Facebook on mine. So wherever you are, this is a live thing, interactive. If you're at Maths Chat, if you were at the Maths Conference and something you remember pops up from our conversation, do comment, do get involved, or if you want and something comes up, do that as well in the recording and live. So yeah, we will get into a very quick round of introduction and get started with it. So I'm Atul Rana, online tutor. I teach primary and secondary based in London. Over to you, Dave. Yeah.
Hi, Dave Tushkin, lead practitioner in a school in Bristol. I wasn't at the MathsConf, but I've jumped on the opportunity to come and join this expert panel. Really looking forward to just sort of asking questions or just trying to think about what the ideas that are discussed today might mean for my practice. So just really privileged to be a part of the panel today. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. And Nathan?
Hi, I'm Nathan. I'm a maths teacher in Nottingham, and I have a website which is interwovenmaths.com.
Brilliant. Helen?
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm also a maths tutor online and in person in North Wiltshire, and doing GCSE and A-level prep, mainly with students and support me.
Great. And Pete?
Hi, I'm Pete. I'm an assistant principal in 1116 school in Leicestershire. I am the author of Visible Maths and Conceptual Maths. Anybody timing that, by the way, just as an aside?
About 5 seconds.
And my website is visiblemaths.co.uk.
I mean, to be fair, that's part of your introduction now, because that's you have got it in your profile picture on Twitter and on the flyer. So. Yeah, hopefully we'll be joined by Mark. I'm not sure yet, because Mark is extremely busy, and I think they've got another conference coming up in Switzerland on this very weekend. So there's always loads going on in complete maths. So hopefully you could join us for a bit. Karen forgot to start the stopwatch. Karen on YouTube. We'll have a recording so we can time it properly. Yeah. So yeah, let's get started. Any sort of thoughts straight away from it? It's been a couple of days. We've had the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve kick in. Maybe we don't remember as much, but see what's there.
I just remember coming away with such a just positive feeling of having spent the day with a load of maths teachers that are so passionate, and tutors, of course, that are so passionate about doing the best they can for their students that they give up their Saturday to chat about maths. And I've been to a few of these now in person, and just nothing really quite replicates that feeling when you're on the journey home, just seeing such passion, such enthusiasm, and having such great time talking maths with people.
Yeah, no, I agree, definitely. I mean, I was having a chat with Tony Gardner while we were there, Dr. Tony Gardner, who I'm a big fan of, and he was saying, some of the sessions, he agreed with some of the things, he disagreed with some of the things. He thinks some of the things are useful, and some of the things he doesn't think are useful. But at the end of the day, the beauty of it is that there are practicing teachers that are getting up, sharing their expertise, and hopefully we're all intelligent enough to take away the bits that we think are useful and the bits that we're not. But and you don't get that really in many other places, and you just get all these lovely maths teachers together talking about what they do, sharing about what they do. And I completely agree, Nathan. I think the word some people used was energized, wasn't it? Just come away from the day feeling energized about their practice again and thinking, yeah, I'm going to go and do some of these things. And yeah, it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. And I've been going to these since number 4 pretty much solidly. And I always come away feeling happy.
Yeah, definitely. I feel somehow they're timed so well. You're beginning to kind of be bogged down by the by the rigor and the demands of teaching, and they just pop in at the right time, and just the enthusiasm brought by people who are there, just a kind of environment, complete mathematics and Mark's created to bring these people together. It's a place also I feel I can actually just talk maths without being, like in normal society, you say, what do you do for a living? Oh, I teach maths. It's like you get this polarized love or hate, mostly hate sometimes. But so it's just good to be in the company of mathematicians who love doing what they do. I think that for me is like every time I'm there, like my people.
Yeah, and it's
maths.
always interesting, isn't it? That's the thing. Whether you agree with it or whether you disagree with it, it's always interesting. It's always worth hearing about. It's never just something that you listen to and go, well, there's an hour of my life gone. It's either, yeah, great, there's stuff I can take away from that, or, well, no, actually, I prefer what I do, I prefer what they do, I prefer this or I prefer that. But it's never something you look at and go, well, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
I think what I've picked up from those sessions as well is that it's so warmly done, and there's this real sort of culture of error as well, that it doesn't matter sort of what you say and how it works. It's all about us sharing ideas and working really positively together to be able to take something away and to have that discourse and challenge our dispositions. And I just think that the way it's delivered and the way that it's run means that you can go in with that confidence to go and try something new and to sort of experience something mathematically and to feel it and understand it and to be able to grow and that's not an easy thing to do, to create that atmosphere where people just want to be there as well. But I've just noticed Mark's coming in, so I'm gonna be quiet now and allow you Atul to bring Mark in. It's lovely to see you, Mark.
Yeah, good to see you, Dave. Evening, everyone. Sorry I was a little late.
No worries, Mark. We were just waxing lyrical about how positive everybody comes away from the day, whether they've learned a little or learned a lot. It's always a nice buzz and a nice, and we always come away feeling happy about the fact we're maths teachers again.
Yeah, it's a great day, isn't it? It's very uplifting. So every one we've had, what have we done? 30 or so of them now. Every single time come back buzzing, feel great, even though it's exhausting to put them on, and there's a lot of work goes into putting them on. But on the Saturday evening, it's a very good feeling when it's all over. So, yeah.
For another week at least.
Yeah, well, yesterday on the Sunday, we already had up the new page for MathsCon 32 and advertising Derby and doing venue and getting people signed up to that. So some people have already registered for MathsCon 32, which is really good. Yeah, June will come around pretty quickly, right? So
I'll get my submission in later for my session. Don't worry.
Well, it's going to be nice and close for you, Pete.
Yes, it will actually. I'll still come up the night before, but
well, hopefully Derby has a pop world. I don't know.
I have yet to experience the joy of MathsCon from Pop World. I'm not sure that I'm ready for it.
You're never ready for it, Helen. You've just got to dive in.
Yeah, it's a spontaneous thing. You can't. It's not planned. It just happens.
So everyone had a really good day then. And most of you presented, right? It's a shame you couldn't be there, Dave. Let's hopefully see you at a future one soon.
Oh yeah, no, I was saying it's really gutted to miss it, and I mean there's the compliment there for wanting to be a part of this tonight when you haven't been to the conference, but it's just such a sort of, as you say, a buzz, a community. I'm like, I just want to be a part of it, and it is one of those days where you go away and you just need to share with everybody everything that you've learned and seen, and as Pete was saying, there'll be things that you think, yeah, I could really take that away. There'll be things that you think, well, I won't do that. That's not quite for me, but it really gets you thinking about it. And yeah, next one, I've got it in the diary. It's going to go in already. We're going to be there at Derby. We're going to make sure we get to that one, because no, I can't afford to miss another one of those. They are absolutely brilliant.
I have to say, see you're from Greenshaw Trust and Bracknell School, and everyone there, Barth Taylor and the team, it's just, they were so good, and it was such a nice venue, and the staff there were amazing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but getting a few hundred teachers their lunch in 5 minutes, it means everything, because then people can sort of get on with networking and being together, and it was so slick, so well put together, and lots of people said to me how impressed they were with the new bit of the building at Bracknell as well. So hopefully,
Yeah, I can't believe how quickly that queue went down, to be fair, Mark. When I went along to the tweet-up room at Nightingale to start setting up, it was queuing almost back to the Nightingale room. And I came out and I was there at the counter, and they were amazing, weren't they?
it was like
nicely
military
organised.
precision.
It was nicely organised, so Rob could stand in one spot and get everybody for the raffle. And queued up for lunch. There was no way of getting your lunch without Rob getting you. So,
Yeah, his position's always strategically chosen. I'm sure of that. I'll be really interested to hear, the workshops people attended and what you guys think. Obviously, for me, it's a strange day because I'm just flat out working all day, and I try to pop around as much as I can. But you guys get a better view of it than I do. You actually get to partake. So I'd be really interested to hear how sessions and so on went.
I mean, my first thing was going to Slam Blatherwick's workshop about power tables, and straight in, like within the first minute, we're doing maths straight up, and I was like, it was really good maths as well. Like, it was rows of powers of 2, 3, 4, and seeing all the patterns and the connections, the digits. It sort of reminded me of some of the stuff that Vicky Priddle does with choral counting, with just sort of basic counting, but with exponents. And it was really, really good. It was like one of those workshops you come back out. And Sam was also quite clear that you shouldn't change your teaching overnight because of what I've just shown. It's just some ideas that you can take away. But this is what I do, and that's. That was a really, really good one for me, actually.
Yeah, I was in that one. I loved it. What was amazing to me is just this one key idea of power tables, but he showed it in a way that I thought, yeah, I'll do that with year 7 tomorrow, but also, yeah, I'll do that with my year 13s. It spanned the entire range of like the most basic ideas, maths, things that are really complicated, really high level, all with kind of one coherent thread going through it. And I thought it was really, really well done. And there was lots of really, really nice maths, and that challenged me, but also was nicely accessible.
Nice. So I saw Jack, first of all, Jack Hancock, on the building around EHCP outcomes. And what was really interesting there, I mean, we didn't get an awful lot of Jack's expertise, and I think I would have liked a little more. But what was really nice was actually just getting to sit and talk with teachers about, the difficulties in planning for those needs when they're in a classroom, the sort of things we might do, building a lesson around what EHCP students are saying that they are interested in or that sparks them, ways to bring in EHCP students that are so often excluded from some of the lessons that we're doing, and just ways of re-engaging them and things like that, and talking with teachers about their experiences of it. So that was a really, really nice aspect to that session, actually. Like I say, it would have been nice to maybe hear a little bit more from Jack about what he does with that, because I don't think we got necessarily enough of that. But talking to the other teachers in the room about it was a really, really good experience for me.
I went to the third one. I was in Charlotte's one with Cuisenaire rods and getting to play with those a lot, which was fascinating. It probably wouldn't be something that I would use as a tutor very often unless I had a student earlier, because if I've got a student coming in at year 10, we're a little bit pushed for the GCSEs, and if I've got time, fantastic, I'll use it, but we don't necessarily have time to familiarise themselves like you would do in the classroom if you're introducing it to year 7s. Charlotte's talking about, if you introduce it with year 7s and just the numbers or just the letters for it, then you can build familiarity with it, and then you can bring it in other places, whereas I would be more using it for procedure, not necessarily a bad thing. But there was lots of useful things about if you wanted the same amount, you had to, if you were adding to Cuisenaire rods, if you had added to one, you'd have to take away from the other. But if you subtracted one from one, you'd have to subtract from the other. And actually building that thought process through about whether I'm doing the inverse or doing the same thing, I think a lot of students struggle with that. So it's a nice thing to be able to picture or to demonstrate to them as to how that works with something concrete, something pictorial, as opposed to the abstract of it.
Well, hopefully, if more people take them on board, then you might find in a few years, Helen, that you're getting more students that are coming to you at year 10 and they're already familiar with those things, and so your familiarity with them will be really useful for them.
Absolutely, it's always good to know what's coming in at the classroom, so that we can mirror that, we can replicate that, we can come at it from a different angle if they're not getting it the way that their current teacher is. We know that there's so many different ways of teaching topics. In every topic, there's a lot of different approaches you can take, and if you've got the classroom teacher teaching one thing, yes, absolutely support that as much as you can. But if they're not getting it, then let's see if there's another way of explaining it. Can we picture it, which would be cues and air rods, and again, if they get used to those algebra tiles, other manipulatives earlier on, then it's certainly easier as we get later on in the curriculum to be able to use those as support.
That's what I was saying to a group of teachers quite recently. I was over at Dixon's Trust and saying, you know, what we're talking about here basically, and Mark's got this in his mastery model, sort of that idea of those correctives. We tried it one way, these kids got it, these kids didn't. The assessment tells me that, so I need a different way to approach it with these kids. So I can go at it like this instead, or I can go at it like this. I can use this model, I can use this model until we find something that's accessible to them and something that engages them. So yeah, the more strings to that bow we've got, the more pupils we're going to reach at the end of the day.
And it does play in also to those that do have the additional needs. If you've got a student with dyscalculia or something similar, that physically being able to picture or move or hold something makes it a whole lot easier for them to understand what's going on. So it helps us to adapt in terms of their learning needs, as well as whether they've understood a method or not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the conversation I was having with Jack at the break immediately after his session, actually. Jack's a lovely bloke, by the way. If you ever get to meet him at a future MathsConf, he's such a nice and enthusiastic person about maths ed. It's absolutely brilliant. You know, he's always shaking people's hand and smiling at people and stuff. He's absolutely lovely. And we were having that conversation afterwards because he'd cottoned on to the Visible Maths book. Somebody had told him that was me that had written it. And we were talking about it and how, you know, exactly what you said, how for those kids that he's working with, because he's saying he was, you know, most of the kids in his sort of school come there with an EHCP of some description, and we were talking about how that ability to work with those things and manipulate those things just aids them with sense making so much more. So what did everybody do number 2 then?
I went to see Katrina talk about hypothesis testing. And
Oh yes, I was interested.
Gosh.
I didn't go and see that because I don't teach A level and haven't for 10 years. But I saw some really good tweets about that. How was that, Nathan?
That was really, really good. Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that statistics is barely maths, and haven't really taught it much before. But it was incredible just seeing that. What to me has historically been such a procedurally sort of thing, where it's loads of nuanced definitions of null hypotheses and do not reject or whatever, all that sort of stuff, and it always ends up typing a load of numbers into a calculator. But seeing such a nice conceptual approach to it, with loads of nice pictures and beautiful little cartoon drawings, it was really, really nice to see. I really, really enjoyed it, and it made me very excited to teach it in hopefully a few weeks' time.
Yeah, it's the topic I dread most in probably teaching all of maths, hypothesis testing at A level.
I always used to love it. I always used to love it when I taught A level, and I've got a student recently, one of my GCSE students who's from last year, who went on to college, because we don't have a sixth form, but he was doing the A level maths and A level further maths, and doing the maths in one year, further maths in the next year. So he was finding the pace a little bit tricky. So he's been coming back to my place, and I've been doing some work with him. And we were doing hypothesis testing quite recently, and I always love it. It's just like, how do you know that this is actually what it says it is, or what if it's not? You know, how do you know that this isn't just random chance, and how do you put a measure on it? I love it. I think it's brilliant. It's a shame I didn't get to go and see. I might pick Katrina's PowerPoint up when the presentations come out, actually, because that would be really interesting.
I think it's one of the harder ones for A level, because it's unlike anything that they've seen before, with the exception of the distributions. We talk about, at least we've got a large data set, but we're doing means. Standard deviation is kind of connected to that, so it's not a massive jump further for them to do. Things like regression lines, links to the line of best fit that they're familiar with from GCSE. I mean, it's not the same, but it's concepts that aren't completely out of the blue. They're not completely unfamiliar to them. Hypothesis testing, as Nathan said, it's got some really weird language that students haven't come across before. I mean, hypothesis, maybe science, but not necessarily in maths. We don't talk about it much before that. Null, and how do you do it? It's just kind of like, and I liked it. It's very unlikely that this is going to happen, but is it unlikely enough? I think was what I wrote down, or is it, what level is it unlikely? So I scored all sorts of notes on that one. I'm looking forward to getting the slides, because you can't write fast enough for slides.
Well, it's a very good demonstration of the point I often make about MathsConf not having a party line, that we allow everyone to speak about anything they wish to speak about. So we even have sessions that aren't mathematics. So the fact will allow anyone to talk about statistics. You know, we've MathsConf, but we allow the social studies there as well. You know. That's one of the things I really like about what we do. That, you know, a lot of conferences you have to sort of go with a message, or you have to be a part of a certain clique of people, and we just say, no, this is everyone, open to absolutely everyone. You can be an NQT, you could be teaching 50 years. If you have some things that are important to you and you want to talk about them, then you're very welcome. And it doesn't matter what phase you're at, and it doesn't matter what your background is, and it doesn't matter where you're from, you can come and be welcomed. And one of the things that, one of the reasons I leave buzzing on Saturday evening is because everyone in the room is just so friendly. And, you know, I see teachers and they'll talk to us beforehand and say, I'm really nervous about delivering this session. And they walk in, there's 80 people in the room waiting to hear from them. And there they are, just espousing the things they believe in. But everyone, even the most experienced people, will listen politely, take on the points. I love that sort of camaraderie on those days. So yeah, come and talk about anything, even statistics.
Might not get 80 for statistics though. I think 80 in a room for hypothesis testing was a stretch.
What was really good about Katrina is, I mean, it's in a very similar way. She posts all these geometry problems, and she does have, you know, she would veer on the mathematics side of things, and she also explained, I remember seeing this kind of boxy looking histogram, and then this smooth looking probability distribution, and she said, like, the reality is kind of boxy and messy, and then we mathematicians, we like this kind of poetic abstraction which is really clean and slick. And
I tweeted that picture.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, she's so good at presenting it in with all those pictures, and so she's gone through a similar journey as we are, trying to get our head around the fuzzy world, and that it's beautifully poetic distributions, and so that was quite refreshing.
What did you go to, Pete? If you weren't in.
I did the session by Maths by Colours, the prime colours thing, where he's got some cards and uses coloured counters in a very similar way to, if you've ever seen the prime number tiles on MathsBot, uses them in a very similar sort of way to that, assigns different prime numbers, different colours of counters, and they've got sort of cards with the symbol on one side, and then the counters that make the product on the other side. And it's mainly aimed at primary, just in terms of, you know, getting them familiar with multiplicative relationships, multiplication, trying to make that bridge from additive reasoning to multiplicative reasoning and things like that. But I was finding things that I could use in the secondary classroom, in terms of factor decomposition, in terms of, you know, those questions we all love around things like find what, if you've got the prime factorization, how do you find all of the factors, and how do you generate the factors, and recognizing that the prime factorization gives you all of the other factors and factor pairs, how you know, what's the smallest number you can multiply this by to turn it into a square number, and actually being able to see that with physical counters. Say, very similar sort of idea to Johnny's prime factor tiles, but a slightly different slant on it. And again, if something like that's going into primary school and preparing them for what might come in secondary, then great stuff, absolutely loving it. And, you know, we're something to build on. Julia Smith, test maths, was really taken with it. Actually, I remember talking to her about the session afterwards, and she tweeted that he should be putting himself in for a bit of Shine Award funding to try and get that out there and into more primary schools, because it seems like it could be a really powerful tool for sort of develop, say mainly at primary, but even at secondary, for those kids that are still stuck in the additive thinking mode and need to move, and you need to get that movement towards the multiplicative thinking. It could be a really powerful tool for that. So I really enjoyed that. We got quite competitive because we had one of the tasks that the kids would have to do, which is around building a chain by only being able to multiply or divide by one factor, one prime. So and you might have seen some pictures. Julia posted one of hers out of different chains of cards we were creating and stuff like that. Who can create the longest chain? And it was just really, really nice, really interesting session to look at that in that sort of way.
I heard a lot of people as they came out of that session talking about it, and then I saw some people at the break, because Jason gave everyone a deck of cards, right, to take away, I think. I saw a load of people at the tables playing it.
Yeah.
A load of maths teachers sitting there with their lunch playing this game that they'd just been introduced to.
I don't think he gave it to everybody. I think some people came and said, how can I buy them? And he said, you can't buy them, but here, feel free to have a deck. Because I know Lisa, who was supposed to join us, got one of those and came down and excitedly flashed it at me at the next break. I got a deck of the cards. I was like, I want one of them.
Yeah, well, it seems to spark a load of enthusiasm. If you can get teachers forgoing some of their lunchtime to play, then I imagine it'll pick some pupils up as well.
Well, I'm gonna get Lisa to the next one, because she's already said she's coming to the next one. So I'm gonna get her to bring that deck and use it as part of the tweet up, so that we get more people out there playing with that. Because that will be, I think that if that's put out there well, that could have some real impact in upper primary, lower secondary classrooms.
Yeah.
I think that's what all the sessions are all about again, isn't it? It's about how there's teachers that are wanting to share their ideas, and in a place where everybody's so positive about wanting to learn more, people just feel sort of really energized, really safe to share their ideas and to learn from each other, and that collaboration is where some of the ideas that I think really truly grow, that can then be sort of passed on to people in their trust. I know that I've gone on to maths class in the past, and one of Catherine's sessions in a previous session at Gloucester Academy, arithmetics, was about the ratio tables, and at the end of the session I was just like, this is one of the biggest pieces of CPD I think I've had in many years mathematically, just to go away and think, oh, speed, distance, time, that's a ratio table. And then Pete talking to you in the book club session about pie charts, that's a ratio table, and it's just all started to click that it's just different vehicles for this same sort of concept, and that had a really sort of big impact, not only on my teaching, but the conversation I was having when I was mentoring or coaching others, and in the staff room too. And it's that buzz that's created at the Maths Conf, which means that everybody gets together. These ideas then sort of grow. The confidence in using them grows. And I was talking to Justin Welford, who ran his first Maths Conf session, and I know that lots of people are running their first sessions who some people maybe wouldn't have that same confidence if they were thinking, is it right for this Maths Conf? But to have this sort of anything's welcome, and we all talk together, that collaborative approach just means that you're able to really sort of grow those ideas and really understand them well. So yeah, I just thought I wanted to share that bit, because it's just listening to these sessions now. I've got 3 or 4 that already that I just want to go and have a look at the slides when they come out and say, yeah, I'm gonna have to dig a little bit deeper on those. It's fantastic.
So that's your goal, isn't it, Mark? Every maths teacher being friends with every other maths teacher and getting that collaboration going on.
Absolutely, that was the original hypothesis of it. What if we all, I remember saying this at Maths Conf 1, what if we all knew each other? Wouldn't the system be better if we all knew each other and we felt you could have a drink with each other and have a laugh with each other? And that's why we try to have things fairly informal. It's really nice to hear you say, Dave, people feel safe, like no one feels humiliated, no one's worried to express a view. Hopefully we try and promote that. I mean, Saturday's opening bit, I say hello in the morning, and then it was basically 20 minutes of Andrew and then Dominic taking the mick out of me. And I like that. It's exactly how it should be. We're just a bunch of people. We're all trying to achieve the same thing. And we can have fun with each other. I remember first floating this idea at DCSF, and the response was, and it's good to hear you say CPD, Dave, the response was, maths teachers won't do CPD on Saturdays. You've got to be kidding me. Of course they will. Of course they will. And there we get hundreds and hundreds of people coming out to do, and it is genuinely is CPD. This is not just a jolly, a get together. Some profound ideas get shared at MathsCon, and it's nice to see people, because I've been at this a long time, and I'm at every event. I've seen teachers change their mind about something they might have presented 5 years ago, and then they present again and say, actually, when I spoke about this previously, I've gone back to school, tried it here, and I've tweaked it, and now I believe this. Love that. It's astonishing. So yeah, that's really nice to hear that, Dave.
Like I say, 100%. There's no way that I would have presented at a conference should it not been for MathsCon. I wouldn't have had the confidence, 100%, to do that. I would have been too meek, too timid, too shy. Wouldn't have believed in my ideas. I still have a lot of that imposter syndrome, but the sort of just that opportunity and that sort of almost permission to go and just share it, and it doesn't matter what people think. Has helped me, if nothing else, to share my ideas, but in a platform where I'm almost sort of, as I'm planning, having to think about it in a deeper level. And so for my own CPD, it's been huge. And then just listening to say so many other maths teachers with so many other great ideas, it'd be so powerful, wouldn't it, if every maths teacher knew every maths teacher. That is the dream, isn't it? It's the goal. But it's MathsConf has gone a long way to being able to connect people and allow that to happen, and the virtual ones too, just to allow people that maybe couldn't travel and get there to be able to access it too. I think it's been another sort of big step forward in CPD for maths teachers. So yeah, just a big thank you, Mark, as well, because it is brilliant.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure. It's knowing each other, but it's also that sort of level of integrity and respect to listen to everyone. One of the things I love about MathsCon is the age range in teachers. It's great. I'm getting on a bit, and I remember going to maths teacher conferences where everyone in the room looked like me. It's like, well, a bunch of old duffers just knocking around saying the same old things for decades. And I love the fact that, and a bunch of us old duffers come to MathsConf, and I love the fact that we sit there and we'll listen to someone who's maybe an NQT, and you think, it doesn't matter that they're just starting out. If they've read something interesting, if they've done the work to do the research, they need to be listened to. And that sort of respect in the room across the age groups, across the backgrounds, across the phases as well. So primary teachers often said to me years ago, I can't possibly present in front of secondary because they're the maths specialists. No. You're doing maths with pupils in a room every day of your life. You're carrying out thousands of experiments every day of your life. And you're smart, and you read, and you've got thoughts that should be shared. So I just love that whole thing. None of this feels like a burden to any of us at Complete Maths. It just is an honour to be able to put these on, and we just love doing it. As long as you guys still love it, we'll keep doing it.
Oh, definitely. We've got some comments coming from Twitter. Jorgen, I think, travelled from Holland. So this typical low floor, high ceiling, something to get for everyone, even non-UK maths teachers. I think Neelam's got a question, probably for you, Mark, I think. It's quite long, actually. I can't help but wonder, is it teach, do, practice, behave, or teach, do, in commas, practice, teach, do, practice, teach, do, behave, and sometimes can it start with behave too?
Okay, it's a good question, isn't it?
It's a long question.
Here's the thing about writing. I guess like most people, maybe you as well, Pete, I write for my own sake. I write just because I need to get things out of my head onto a piece of paper so that I can articulate my own thoughts and work out what am I actually thinking here. But as soon as you do write something, you put it out, those ideas, they're not yours anymore. They're out there and they're beasts. And people do all sorts of things with them. I sometimes go along to a conference and hear people, I see people presenting and they'll say, so what teaching for mastery says, for example, and they'll just do a session and they never said any of those things ever. And I just sit there listening to, this is what he says. Teach, do, practice, behave. It's whatever works in the situation. Do you go through phases? Yeah, sure you do. Does learning happen in the moment? No, that's why you have to go through these phases. Do you need to get pupils to articulate back whether they're receiving their meaning from you? Yes, of course you do. Do you have to do it in a rigid way that's exactly the same in every single lesson? Hell no. You can't. If you could write, I've said this lots of times, and I warn about this when I talk about mastery or teach, do, practice, behave, or limitless. I always warn about the same thing. Like, this is just me having a discussion. If you could write down on a piece of paper, this is how you teach a maths lesson, someone would do it, and then we just employ drones to deliver it. This is complex. You have to think, the real human beings in front of me right now at this moment, how do I act? What's the pedagogic choice I make in this moment? And if in this moment it is, actually I'm going to chuck some behave into this so-called teach do bit, do it. This was not meant as a rigid framework. And like in the recent thing I wrote on Limitless, I deliberately put a pyramid picture in that just to take the piss, right? Because like Bloom writes this amazing book, and then some idiot consultant draws a pyramid, and everyone remembers the pyramid. So I thought I'll draw my own pyramid just to have a laugh. But I've already been at an event where someone says, so Mark McCourt says that they go in these hierarchies. I didn't write in brackets on the thing. Don't take this seriously. I'm having a laugh. So my answer to Nilam, and Nilam's a very, very smart woman, really good head of maths. She knows what to do in the moment with her kids, and she knows if it needs to be mixed up, you mix it up. And if there are times where it flows in the way that I describe it in the most simple way, great, that's fine too. So,
can you make sure you're shouting that very loudly at the DFE mark as well, please?
Well, as you know, Pete, I do rant on about things for many a decade. And I have been banging these sorts of drums for a long time. Falls on deaf ears, though. Because the trouble is, people desperately want to be able to write a piece of A4 and say, job done, that's it.
Yeah.
They don't want to accept that what we do is very, very, very complex. Even though studies keep showing that, like, teachers make a lot of decisions every day, heck of a lot of decisions. It's like trying to predict the weather next year. You can't write this thing down. You have to make people in teaching as smart as you possibly can, help them to have the ability to incrementally become more and more and more and more expert, help them to understand that none of us ever get there. We never become expert teachers and we never know the answers. So do all that, and then you have really smart people standing in front of pupils, and then trust them to make the right pedagogic choice in those moments in real time. That's what I'd suggest.
We could very easily get into a conversation there about workforce leaving early, youngest workforce in the OECD and all the rest of it, but that probably wouldn't be what the point of this discussion is.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll bring it back to MathsConf 31. With this actually, sort of behave. So for me, workshop 3 was Joe Morgan, Pythagoras, and initially I was, Pythagoras, is there any more I can learn? Joe Morgan, so I went there and my mind was blown, and one thing I'd never used before and I used today was actually this spiral of Theodorus, and I used it with the tutee today, who hasn't really done much Pythagoras. It probably doesn't have as many of the prerequisites required to understand the spiral of Theodorus in full, but as an idea of a construction and how you build it up and what it looks like. I think that that it could be a behave thing, but you can start with that. So it's up to you. just to echo Mark's point, it's up to you who's in front of you and what measurements you got back, what you want to convey to them, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too complex to say, here's the rule. Like, you have 30 real living human beings in front of you, all with unique backgrounds, unique experiences, unique misconceptions, and unique knowledge. How on earth would you know how to act until it's happening? You know, so, yeah, absolutely. And to say at all that Pythagoras is there anything else I could possibly learn about that? I'm right. There could be an entire curriculum, like the whole of school curriculum could just be about similarity in triangles, and you wouldn't finish it. You'd just go on and on and on and on. So, and I like that. I like that as well. You don't become expert teachers. Every bit of maths is infinitely extensible as well. There's always something to have a discussion. I'm getting a little freaked out as to whether Nathan has the world's smallest guitar, or is it very, very far away? I can't work out. So I think Nathan has to do a session on perspective at a future MathsCon.
Got 3 guitar amps if you want.
That is not a guitar, it's just a money box that looks like a guitar. But I did want to jump in, so thank you for the opportunity. Firstly, one of the things I love so much about MathsConf is you get these such niche workshops, and it shows that teaching maths isn't something that you can, as you say, reduce down to a page of A4. We can talk for hours about just the smallest topic within maths. Imagine if we went into that level of depth on every topic. If there was an hour MathsConf session on every single lesson you teach, it's amazing how deep and nuanced you can get with it. The other thing I want to say is, going off from what people are saying about, Mark, you were saying about how MathsConf's all about what happens if everyone knew each other, what happens if everyone could meet each other. And for me, that was my experience going to the AQA workshops. I went to 2 of those. And to me, I don't know, in the past, the exam board has felt kind of like this distant kind of enemy that occasionally throw an exam paper at you and write this specification and that's it. But actually meeting the person behind the large data set, that was like, it was like seeing the Wizard of Oz. It was amazing. And getting that kind of really in-person relationship with the exam board was a really enjoyable experience, to be able to talk to the people working at AQA about how they write their exams, how they come up with the topics, how they write. I thought it was a really, really nice experience. I'm glad to have had that opportunity.
It's so good putting faces to names, isn't it? And actually having a proper relationship, friendship with people. And then it brings down all the barriers. Like, you know, I don't know, at some point in the future, you think it'd be really interesting to ask AQA this. And now it's not AQA, it is, I might drop Andrew an email, or, you know, I might drop Dan an email, and, you know, get back to you. And, you know, knowing that everyone in the system is just trying to do what you're trying to do. They're just trying to make things really good for pupils in classrooms, and try to make pupils as mathematical as they can possibly be.
I mean, I do that all the time now. You know, I'll drop a quick DM and I know it's Andrew or Carly or Dave that's coming back to me on it, or I'll fire Robin an email or whatever else. And it's just, yeah, it is absolutely brilliant being able to just access those people and get that discussion going, because they know that you're trying to do the same thing as them, which is get people better educated in mathematics and make sure that that's what's happening. So yeah, no, I like that, Nathan. That's really good, really nice. Anybody see anybody else, Joe?
Oh, sorry.
Go on, Dave. No,
I was just going to say, was it just building on that? I think Colin Hegarty was there too. Is that right? Sparks were there as well. So you had that sort of connection where you can really sort of talk to someone about the homework package and understand it in that sort of more depth, what's intended, how it's designed, and some of the additional features that might support your students, and how it's used, and how they sort of see it being used, and hopefully that can become also a two-way conversation where you can have that sort of input into some of the ideas that Sparks are using, and really understand sort of where it's coming from. So yeah, with AQA as well, I think you've got Sparks there as well, and it's just, yeah, those opportunities to meet people, as you say, Mark, to be able to put a face to name and break down those barriers is it's so important, because sometimes it is just seen as it's AQA, it's the exam board, and to be able to sort of message a person and to be able to see and get your answers from somebody sort of more directly is such a support, and the MathsConf really does that for us.
I mean, to be fair, the exhibitors themselves are brilliant, and you're always something that, like, you know, I've been doing this job now over 15 years, which for some is not long, but for many people is quite long. And I've found a brand new thing in the exhibitors, Masalito, I think it was, that were exhibiting there, and I'd never heard of it. Never. There it is. Yeah, I've got that in my bag. I'm going to take some time on one of the strike days this week when I'm not doing some teaching to have a proper look at it. But that's one of the such a powerful thing with MassConf is you can always, whether it's the exhibitors, whether it's the people, there's always something interesting, new to discover, no matter how long you have been doing this job.
Yeah, I think, and that having that group of people there is really important. They're part of what we're trying to do, right? Everyone's trying to do the same thing. And people quite often ask me, so say Dave wants to go and speak to Sparks, and some of our guys can speak to the complete maths team, and someone else is going to go and talk to Masalit, say. And people often say to me, well, why would you have these people at a complete maths conference? It's like, because we're all trying to do the same thing, you idiot. Like, the system is enormous, and there is space for all of us to try to do something. I always, running a school, I hated that idea of one school competing against another school. It's like, no, if you run a school, your job is to make maths education or education better for every child in the country, not the children at your school. You're supposed to be contributing to the whole. And you see this with AQA, right? AQA are there at the stand, and next door to them is Pearson. And it's not a case of, oh, crikey, we don't want to be next to each other. It is, no, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. We're trying to make maths education better. And I love that. I love there's no, back to that, no party line. There's no league, there's no club. It is, if you're up for making maths education better for pupils, this is the place for you. You can come here and be a part of this. So yeah, that group of people that come along, there's always something, isn't there? Like you're saying, Pete, there's always some little new idea. I remember when, I think it was a Bristol MathsCon quite a long time ago, and Amy came and set up a little stand with some Rec and Rec.
Yeah.
And she was a little bit nervous, will people be interested in this? And hordes of people like on her and tell us about this. And, there's always some little thing to think about, and it could be something like Rec and Rec, which around a really, really, really long time. And those of us that are long in the tooth think, well, that's really cool that's making a sort of resurgence. And then it could be something brand new, like the Masalit guys that were there the other day. And what they're putting together is designed to make things better for pupils. So that's all that really matters. That's our entire criteria. You want to make things better for pupils. Pretty easy, really.
It's nice for tutors as well. I'm spreading the word amongst maths tutors. We don't have a staff room, most of us. We don't have fellow teachers that we can go, how did you teach this? Where's the resource for that? What's this, that, and the other? I mean, we're getting there slowly, thanks to Zoom, and the pandemic certainly sped things up like that. But knowing that who to go to in the classroom, who is out there, who we've met, who we've spoken to, I feel comfortable that I could drop any of you guys a DM saying, having a bit of an issue with how are you teaching this in the classroom? What resources have you got? Nathan can obviously point me to his website. I know there's MathSpot out there. So there's Pete's book. There you go. I mentioned it for you. Joe's book. There's so many.
Not mentioning my websites though, Helen, are you? No, I've seen my websites. I haven't crossed there, but okay.
I knew I was going to do something on that one. There's so many resources out there, but having now met people, and Complete Maths did make me feel welcome as a tutor. There's so many of these education things that if you're not in a school, you can't get into. So as a tutor, being able to connect with classroom teachers, being able to speak to the exam boards, who we can't get access to in other ways. It's really hard to talk to the exam boards as a tutor. Not that we want to know things that we shouldn't know, and we don't want to take away mocks and all those sorts of things, but actually knowing what's coming and being able to know when syllabus changes are coming and all those sorts of things. It's a community, isn't it? It's important to know people, because that's where you're going to grow together.
Yeah, and kudos to Atul for spreading the word with tutors. It was always a thing we wanted. We wanted everyone there that was anything to do with maths education. And Atul did a very good job of banging the drum for
It's the same issue as Helen had. It's just a very lonely thing, and it's just good to meet others. And likewise, I think you should complete maths. I tried other CPD, but complete maths were the most open to tutors and anyone really. And sort of bringing back, it was also good to see lots of primary practitioners there. Their number of workshops are growing, and my fourth one was Lisa, who would have joined us, but she can't make it. And it was really good to get her perspective on how much work she has in teaching vocabulary in all the subjects like history, English, maths, and how something like odd means something else in English in a sort of day-to-day street language, and then has a very specific meaning in maths. And she was talking about how overwhelming it is to juggle all these different balls and different hats and try to make sure they also know the mathematical vocabulary. I can think of one thing that in fractions, for example, a third means something else as opposed to in a ranking first, second, third, but it's the same word. And that these kind of things that you take for granted as a sort of more of an expert when it's being taught. So it was a fascinating, it was really, really good input from her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a primary sort of session on pretty much every one, wasn't there? Because my third session was with Kieran Mackle, and obviously that was primarily again aimed at primary, but with the session titled "The Next Big Thing in Maths Education," I thought there's no way I'm missing that at all. Apparently, Kieran was also responsible for Stuart's session title as well. He knows how to get a title that'll engage people. Kieran does, but yeah, and he was talking. I mean, it was talking about sort of the making explicit the models that they're using for things like addition, multiplication, the laws of arithmetic, and making those much more explicit lower down at the primary level as well, and sort of the work that he's done in the schools he's worked in previously, and the work that he's going to be hopefully building on now that he's working for Complete Maths, to sort of get those moving further at the primary level. And I think, yeah, great stuff, absolutely brilliant. And it's great that so many more primary people are engaging with CPD, because, you know, it's not easy for them. They've got bloody everything to teach, but engaging with PD around maths and providing PD to each other around maths as well. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we always make sure there's a couple of primary ones in every slot that's suitable for primary. It's nice to be able to have that sort of caliber of CPD. You know, that the one you were talking about there with the primary session about speaking with technical mathematical language. Superb, you know. By far the hardest maths to teach is early maths, by far. Yeah. And the precision of your language makes an enormous difference as to whether it sticks or not. You know, so
and whether it's buildable upon by the time they get up to us, where it's easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not going to say secondary maths is easy, but certainly the earliest maths is most complex.
It's also permanence about it. Like trying to drill out bid mass or crocodiles, trying to drill that out is really hard because it's kind of there, or it's kind of embedded.
I noticed the difference during lockdowns, having to teach my own reception age child in the first lockdown, trying to teach her basic addition, basic thing. I mean, it's instinctive for me now. I mean, and having to watch my language and watch what I was doing at that level, knowing that the impact it could have all the way up. I mean, yes, kudos to early years and to primary school teachers, because I couldn't. I mean, I did it. We all did what we had to in the pandemic. But yeah, seeing how they did it at that level actually impacted how I teach it when they get to me at 15, 16 kind of age. But yeah, it's really important, I think, to think about that. And the earlier the interventions, the earlier that the underpinning topics are sorted at primary school, the easier it is, I think, for them to pick up the harder topics at secondary. I've still got students that struggle with fractions now at 16, heading into GCSE, whereas some of the earlier fraction work is a lot earlier in the curriculum. So they've had all these years and they've still struggled with it. So the earlier we can get the language right, the earlier they can understand some of these concepts, the easier things are to build upon. As somebody said, build. I want to say Pete. Might not have been Pete, but I think it was Pete.
Something that I picked up from obviously a different session, not being here at this particular one makes it harder to comment on. So I am going back to previous ones, I know. But on an earlier session I went to as a secondary teacher, to understand sort of where the sort of the thoughts behind the teaching comes from, to understand with the curse of the expert what it is that I really don't know about how I would explain something that feels so basic to me but is so incredibly complex. And just hearing some of the ideas, and there's a book I think in Lisa Pollard's session on a previous one called I Spy Numbers, and it was just so good for engaging earlier students in what it means conceptually to be a number, the actual physical writing of the number. So each page represents a different number, and just using that with my two children as they're growing up through just past lockdown, but being able to support them as well, and just to get it just that little bit more when they come to secondary school as a secondary teacher. The experience that they've had makes it easier for us then to be able to sort of understand the misconceptions that they might have, and therefore sort of deal with them and support them through those. So yeah, I think as a secondary teacher, going to some of the primary sessions is I'm sure nothing short of essential, I think, for my understanding of how to teach well.
And
on the other end of that one, I went to Rob Southern's session 4 on graph transformations, going straight to A level. I think it really struck me in his session. It's the first time I've met Rob in person. Something we've kind of mentioned a few times, the generosity of so many teachers and different institutions, that anyone who's written A-level maths resources knows how long and arduous it can be to get the perfect numbers that work, and to get things. It's a horrible thing to do. And he shares so much on his website, and just getting a chance to have a go at some of his tasks. And if you want some underground maths, which similarly is so generous in sharing all it does, or did, 3D variable, was just really enjoyable. I was kind of expecting that session to be him talking for an hour about how to teach graph transformations, which I was ready for, but it ended up being a really nice one, just getting to do some tasks, do some maths with graph transformations, which is a topic I would love to teach better, and hope I will do better next time now. But the generosity, it was just on show throughout the whole day, as it always is. That spending the day with Amanda Austin, who shares everything all for free, talking to Johnny Hall, who does so much both as part of MathSpot, but also the complete maths task booklet is just the best thing ever, like possibly. I use it basically every day. I use a task from that, and to have that shared for any teacher to have access to is just so generous. And that just, you got that throughout the day, that we are all working together to try and teach maths better to everyone, and we're all part of the same team in that, and that was just really nice.
I love that, Nathan. We're all part of the same team on that. I think that's a great phrase. I'm sure Mark's going to steal that at some point.
Kieran's already got a workshop titled.
Yeah.
Yeah. My last one was your workshop, Pete, and I really liked
Yeah,
the way
I was avoiding commenting on it for that very reason.
Well, you turned it around on us, really. Like, we were discussing perpendicularity as a concept, and you sort of gave it to us to discuss and then see what comes back, and then compare your list to the kind of user-generated list. It's a very, very good way of getting everyone pool together their knowledge and their thoughts on it, and then you compare it to yours, and anything that was missing then was added to that. So that's a great way of pulling it together.
Yeah, well, I think, as I said at the beginning of that session, in many of my sessions I will get up and do quite a bit of talking and quite a bit of exposition and things like that, but actually, if you want teachers to think about a concept in mathematics that that comes through the curriculum in different places, and you want to consider how to approach that coherently, then yes, you could stand up and say, this is how I do it. And of course there was bits of that in there, but actually that's the sort of thing that and this is what I said towards the end of the session, I think, that's the sort of thing that maths teachers should really be doing a lot of the time, when they're sitting down with their teams, when they're sitting down with their colleagues, whichever colleagues, wherever we get colleagues from, actually sit down and talk about maths ideas and where they appear in our curriculums and what that journey looks like from a student perspective. And so the point of that was as much about the way of behaving as a group of maths teachers for me as it was the actual content. I mean, I could have picked any concept really for that. It wasn't so much, very often my sessions are about the content, but this one wasn't, and I think that's why I probably approached it in the way I did.
Sorry to cut across, but I need to jump off now to go to another meeting. But thanks very much for inviting me, Atul. It's really nice to speak to you all, and thanks very much for coming to MathsConf. And I hope to see you in Derby in not too long a time. So
yeah, cheers, Mark. We'll see you there.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, great. Well, we've come to the hour anyway, so we can start wrapping up. And any kind of parting thoughts anyone has on?
I don't think I would have a parting thought about a particular session. I mean, what I would say is, I saw 4 sessions. I wish I'd seen more. So get in there and see what the other people, the other stuff that's in there. Even if some of it somewhat suffers from the lack of interactivity element because you're just looking at somebody's PowerPoint slides or something like that. I'm looking forward to being able to get in and digging through all the stuff I didn't get to see that day and seeing what gems I can steal, even in the absence of the session leader themselves.
That's always the disadvantage with MathsConf in person, compared to MathsConf online. Until we manage to clone ourselves or to slow down time, you can only be in one session at once. And yeah, much as you can get the slides and you can do it, you obviously don't hear the person expounding on them, and depending on the quality of slide and how much information is on there, some of them are easier to follow than others. Whereas the online ones, you can, if you find the time, go back and watch the recordings. Of course, that requires its own element of time finding, but that is achievable, whereas 2 places at once haven't yet cracked. I would wanted to be in power tables and Charlotte's one on the first session on MathsConf, and I can't do 2 places at once.
For a minute there, Helen, I had images of you with like 4 screens up, having 4 videos going simultaneously, and trying to filter the audios across one of these online conferences.
Yeah, that's worth trying. Next time MathsConf online, I'll send you a picture of me trying to do as many different sessions as I can. I'm on 2 screens, so I could probably do at least 2 places at once. 1 earbud in each. Yeah, let's not go there, shall we? Yes. There we go. That's the only disadvantage with MathsConf in person.
You can pick up a lot from the tweets sometimes as well. I mean, I put something up on my social media, and like someone I don't even know as a maths teacher, actually she said something. She saw one of Katrina's slides on the truth and stats, trying to get fuzzy stuff using the tools of mathematics to flesh out the truth as well as you can. She said, I can use that for my work. I can use that for my work slide. I actually don't even know what she does for work, but clearly, even just that one slide, there's stuff in it. So, they can pick it up, bits and pieces from the slides as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of value, and just an incredible amount of value in all of it.
For mine, just very quickly to just use an opportunity to say a couple of thank yous, because the Greenshaw Learning Trust who hosted, and especially Rhiannon, who's would have loved to have been here in this chat tonight, I know. Just a massive thank you for all the time that goes on behind the scenes, along with Complete Maths, who have just been absolutely phenomenal as always with what they're organising. And then a personal thank you. One of the workshops, Justin Welford, ran a workshop on a book club that Rhiannon and I run, and he offered his first sort of workshop where he had a group of people and was just sharing the power of sort of learning through reading, and just thank you very much for sort of sharing some of the work we do as well, because it was such a compliment to hear that, not being there, but that somebody was talking about something we'd done. It was really humbling. So Justin, thank you as well for that. But just like what I'm taking away from here is I've got a lot of reading and through the slides to do. It sounds like there's so much to do. The one that's really grabbed me, the power tables we said at the very beginning. So I think that's where I'm going to be going first. But there's so much in there, which I'm really excited to dig around more. It looks fantastic.
There's a tweet on there, yeah. There's a,
I think you could spend an hour on the first slide alone.
yeah, exactly.
The Witch's bigger slide. Oh,
Slow down time. There's money in it for the person that can slow down time.
Yeah. Anything from you, Nathan and Holland, and parting or?
I think most of what needs to be said has been said, hasn't it? It was just such a really, really nice day. I can't wait for the next one, and a bit closer to home, which is nice.
We shall see if I make the next one.
They should all be in Derby.
It's not that close to home. So,
But that's one of the brilliant things, isn't it? You know, they go north, south, middle. There's always one in the year that's a reasonable travelling distance for you. You know, if you can't make all three, like some of us die-hard fans do, and travel up and down the country going to them. But if you can't make all three, you can always make one. You know, there's
if
always
it's too
one
far
within
away,
a
that's an excuse to spend 2 nights rather than 1.
We are gonna have to do that again soon, Nathan. Do a Saturday night stay as well. Probably not Derby, because I think you and I would struggle to justify 2 nights away. But yeah, one of them soon. We'll do the Saturday night as well and stay over the Saturday night. Come back the Sunday.
I think at some point I saw maybe muted on a draft one said hell yeah, and I'm going, yeah, don't mind the Channel Islands, but we would need 2 nights because that's a flight or a ferry.
Jersey was in the schedule at one point, but has since disappeared, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, that's a great thing. I mean, my tutor friend Dina, she is in Derby, so I was joking to her. It's coming home. You know, you have to be there. So it's always coming home for someone because it's close to someone's home, and that's the great thing about it. It's not a London thing. It's not a Bristol thing. It's not a Derby thing. It's not. It's another fantastic thing.
I mean, it's a little bit of a Kettering thing, just a little bit, but
the spiritual home.
It took me 3.5 hours to get to Kettering. And then back again. Just small getting lost. I'm on my way now. Sorted.
Yeah. Great, we can wrap it up there. Again, yeah, thanks for giving up your time and obviously to Complete Maths for doing the whole thing. And I think Mark mentioned AQA as well for sponsoring it. I mean, I believe they make it extremely affordable, otherwise they'd be a lot more expensive. So yeah, thanks for everyone's time, and if you're watching this recording or viewing it later, you have some comments, put it out there. We'll keep the discussion going, and catch you again at the next MathsConf. I'll stop streaming now and then we'll have a quick little chat before we finish up. Bye.